there's signs of spring everywhere. The sun is out today, even though the temperature is still below freezing. The clouds are supposed to come in, and that will warm it up just a bit into the 40s. We've spent the last week preparing some of the beds. We've rototilled, we've taken out the rocks, the leaves, and I'll show you a little bit of that, Philip's rototilling. And we're getting ready now to move into our next phase of gardening. Time when I'm going to start more things inside, things like peppers and tomatoes, things that I can then have established in little pots to transplant outside as soon as most of the risk of freeze is gone. So we're just playing the odds here and trying to get a little bit longer growing season by trying some things out. If we get a cold spell, which is common in Virginia, it may kill what we put outside. So we won't put everything out, but it's time to move that direction. So I'll give you an update. I'll show you the plants inside and how they're faring. We'll uncover our 2 beds of greens and show you how they have survived after the polar vortex last week. And then our plan for today is to put potatoes in this bed. And I'll show you why we're going to be planting potatoes here in the 2nd week of February. So what are your thoughts on the tiller?
That tiller's all right. You know, it works better if the ground is all dirt. It doesn't like all the weeds we've added. Doesn't like rocks.
Obviously, gas one works better, but it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So, comparing the cost for the power, was this a good, worthwhile purchase?
Yeah, I think so. Gets the job done.
And what would you say is the biggest? I see you have to put things down on the side,
yeah,
because
it shoots them over.
It shoots it over. That you wouldn't have that problem if you weren't doing it in a raised bed.
Right.
Right? Because it'd just be the...
Right, it would just shoot it to the side. But I don't want to lose the dirt.
Right.
So...
Especially since we're working hard to get dirt in here. So what's the best thing about it? This tiller?
Well, it tills it up.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
What's the worst thing about it?
Yeah, it does, if you have a lot of roots and stuff, it will get clogged up.
And it skips over the top if it can't dig down.
Right. And if it runs into rocks or big roots, it basically comes to a standstill. It either just bounces on it or goes nowhere.
It looks a lot smaller than it did before.
It's not that big, that's for sure.
Do you think all our potatoes will fit in here?
I would just make sure they fit in there. I don't care, because I don't know how good they're going to do. They've never done good here in Virginia previously, so.
It's the 2nd week of February. The plants are inside for a few days. At this point in the season, I keep my eye on the weather. I'm looking for a time when weather.com shows that I will have 2 weeks with the low temperature not getting below 32, or if it does, just a little below 32. Many of these things can go out, like the celery possibly can go out. It likes cool weather. Definitely the Chinese cabbage, the bok choy. We'll start looking at which things we can move outside starting tomorrow. But for right now, one of my problems that I'm going to have to address this week is the loofah. You can see here that the loofah is branching out. This is one plant, and look at all the branches on this plant. And it's starting to put out tendrils to climb. So I've got to come up with some idea on how to put them in some type of pot to keep them indoors for another probably 2 months before they can go out. So I will show you next week what I come up with for the loofah. I have some ideas, don't know if they'll work, but I'll show you that next week. The celery is really exciting. I haven't grown celery before, but the stems are looking good. The leaves are growing quickly. The artichoke, not too happy. I'm not sure what happened. This happened when I put it outside. It was in the 50s, so maybe it doesn't like it that cool. Maybe it just did it in. I have it now back under the light, and we'll see if it perks back up. Here's the second little one. You remember last week it just had its funny little leaves. One of them started to wither, but now it's putting out its first true leaves, complete with the little spiky teeth. I'm starting to grow some onion bulbs. We can direct plant outside after this weekend because they can take a little bit of a frost. I just didn't want to put them out when the temperatures could get down as low as 21. But looks like we're doing pretty good, so I can start planting them outside. I started a couple inside just to see if I could get them to root inside before moving them out. Well, let's see what it looks like under here in this cool weather. This is the first bed. So it was planted a while ago, and the things in it are doing well. Philip comes out and harvests, I saw him harvest 6 or 7 leaves of the Napa cabbage today for his greens. The lettuce still doing very well. Both the red romaine and the oak leaf. And here is something from the cabbage family. I'm not sure what it is. It probably came up as a seed. I remember that over here I put romaine lettuce. And I put it right in here, and I don't see any of it at all. So I think it all died. So the romaine did not survive. Here's some of the kale that's a little bit older, and it did fine. So let's look at the new bed. This was the bed that I planted last week, you remember, and then it endured the polar vortex. Or I planted 2 weeks ago, I think, and then we took a look at it to see, and it was wilty but alive. And this, the lettuce again, has done really well. It's still totally fine. Here is a Napa cabbage, I think, because I didn't put any bok choy out, so this would have to be a Chinese cabbage, sorry. The kale, remember I thought that the curly kale probably was a goner, and you can see these leaves did not survive, but it put out new growth even during the cold. As long as it was underneath the row cover, it actually put this new growth out. And here, the romaine lettuce over here did survive. And it's here. So it survived. Most of the curly kale did not. Just this one. The spinach survived out here. Of course, it's not anywhere near as tall and big and healthy as the one inside. So keeping it inside definitely helps it grow faster. And then here, the arugula is holding its own. Hasn't grown any, but looks just as good as it did before. So all in all, not bad. And now I'm going to cover it back over because it is supposed to get down to 31 or so, 32 maybe tonight. But it feels colder than that. So it doesn't hurt to keep them covered, keep them a little warmer inside. When I was outside, I said I would show you why we are pushing to plant the potatoes now, even though middle of February or second week of February, definitely too early to be planting potatoes. So why would we be doing that? Well, because we got potatoes from the store at a reduced price. We went ahead and we bought 20 pounds of potatoes and it was great. It was a really good deal, but of course some of them were sprouting. And as they sprouted, we cut off the sprouts and we let them sit for a day to harden on the bottom. And then our thought was, well, I'll just put them in a little bit of dirt, keep them in the basement so they're cool with just a little bit of water. And if we can just keep them mostly dormant, then we can plant them outside when it's warm. Well, the problem is they have started to sprout here in the basement. And you can probably see, you see this, hold it up a little bit here so you can see the stem here, the stem here, stem here. These are potatoes that I put in a couple of inches of dirt on the bottom, and they have sprouted and have stalks between 2 and, this one's probably 6 inches, so between 2 and 6 inches. They don't get a lot of sunlight down here in the basement, so they're growing up searching, but they need to go in the ground soon. This is very dry. I've just added a little bit of water just to keep them going. The problem is, when Philip went out there to dig around this morning, he couldn't even break through the top 2 or 3 inches because it was like ice, hard like a rock. So we're not going to be able to plant today. That was our plan, but it's not going to work out. So I'm going to just keep these slightly watered down here in the basement, and I hope to be able to plant them sometime this week if it warms up enough to thaw the ground. And once we get it thawed, then I'll keep a row cover over it. I will keep you updated on that. Our plans didn't work out like we had planned this morning. I was hoping that we would get those potatoes in the ground. Didn't happen, but that's okay. I'll keep you updated and let you know next week if we were able to plant the potatoes, and then how our raised beds do, and whether or not we get any new sprouts. So stay warm, take care, see you next week.